Hello, my name is Paul Jenkins, Managing Director of UK Packaging Innovation Consultancy ThePackHub, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Barden, CEO of Konvoy, the world's leading IoT keg tracking and pooling solution. Christian, how are you doing?
Very good, thank you, Paul.
Excellent. Well, really good to have you here today. You are one of our Packaging Startup Award winners, so very keen to find out a bit about yourself and your innovation. So first of all, can you tell us a little bit about your background and what inspired you to start Konvoy?
Absolutely. Well, look, I'm 27 years in the drinks industry, and all of that connected with the wonderful beer industry as well, and had a fantastic 16 years at the world's biggest brewer. Working across a range of different trade channels, routes to market, and roles, and as I sort of went off to explore a more plural, entrepreneurial sort of turnaround startup world, I actually got involved with an Australian business called EcoKeg, which was a plastic keg business as non-exec. And part of the reason for doing that was there were so many wonderful experiences with bringing great beers to the market at AB InBev, and a lot of them came to a crunch point around packaging. And within those, some of the most tough packaging moments was around having kegs on hand, knowing where your kegs are, and managing that keg fleet and the attrition of keg fleets. And so by getting involved with a plastic keg company, I was able to take previous problems and start to explore solutions. And then from that, I then sort of moved on to working with and built a business with a founder called Adam Tripp-Smith called Kegstar, absolutely pointed at solving the problems with steel kegs. And having successfully built that business with Adam, after Adam's departure from the business, we then sort of moved that on to a much a bigger organization. And here we are again, solving the world's problems as Konvoy. And this time, moving on from manual tracking and moving on from manual assessment and telephone calls, etc., to Internet of Things tracking, enabling to really get under the skin of the problems that can occur when moving beer through the supply chain, and most importantly, with reusable packaging, actually making it reused.
There's a man that knows his stuff. So that brings me really nicely on to talk about the specific packaging innovation or solution that your startup offers. I mean, you kind of got into that, but can you go into a bit more details about how it sort of addresses current industry challenges?
Certainly. Well, I mean, start at that very holistic level, that reusable doesn't mean it's reused, and recyclable doesn't mean it's recycled. And if I start at a very headline level of probably the two single biggest problems with draft beer, is that there is so much craftsmanship, skill, and quality control that happens in breweries all over the world. Of course, once you've packaged that and sent it from the brewery, you start to, by default, lose control of how that ultimately might be consumed. When really the real test of anything that we consume is, how that consumer feels about it when it touches their lips, and how they think and feel and do as they taste it. And so, first of all, you have a global problem assumed to be around $500 million worth of steel keg losses around the world every single year. So,
wow.
And as a rough guesstimate, that's 225 million tons of CO2 of production carbon, should I say, that goes into those kegs that ultimately we lose. When really metal is a infinitely recyclable material, and these are reusable products, and therefore many of the great operators out there like Bleffer and Major and Tillman will give a 25 to 30 year warranty on their product. But actually, when steel kegs are looked after well, they can last much longer than that. So you have this huge sort of carbon footprint through losses, as well as financial footprint through losses to be solved. But addition to that, within beer, is that you lose control of that quality. And there are a few things that will affect quality of beer, and that's time and it's temperature. And ultimately, seeing those things through the supply chain allow you to then be so much more in charge of the things that, again, can affect what the consumer feels when it gets poured. I can't control those last bits of what happens in the cellar and what might happen at the bar and how clean the glass is, etc. But certainly, we can provide an awful lot of visibility on those things between the brewery and the bar and back again.
Excellent. Brilliant. So talking a little bit more about some of the challenges that you faced sort of while establishing and growing your business. I mean, how do you overcome them? It's difficult, isn't it?
Absolutely, like with any business, there's always ongoing challenges, and like with any business, you can have the most fantastic purpose, you can have the most fantastic mission statement, you can absolutely be focused on solving the problem, but you've also got to make sure you've got the right people on board. So, a message to anybody would be: go and make sure you've absolutely got the right people, and you've got the right people performing to the right culture. And staying on top of that culture and what it takes to succeed. So I think that's the first bit. The other thing is really focusing hard on the problems, and there are always, a couple of big problems you're trying to solve. But then there are also sort of plenty of smaller problems you're trying to solve. Making sure you're really clear about those things rather than trying to mend the entire world's problems is really crucial as well. And we see it all the time. Focus is such an important thing, and a lack of focus can lead you into lots of different areas that are both costly on time as well as money. And then in terms of going into technological solutions, technology is evolving all the time. And of course, it's accelerating. And in many ways, it's accelerated post the pandemic. But technology will only ever be an enabler. It won't ever do the job for you. And remembering that if that's the case, then you need to build your business a certain way. And if you can just make it that little bit better every single time, then that's great. And in this case, we've decided that we're just going to make sure that we keep moving beverages forward by providing, the right kind of, a platform for kegs to do what they need to do, and the right kind of data for people to be able to run their business better, and wrap the right kind of care around it. Because if we get it right, then consumers get better experiences all the way through the supply chain.
Thanks. So how can entrepreneurs in the packaging industry learn from your experiences to, achieving success?
Wow. Start with the first thing. Make sure you get a good team in place. There is so much value in good leadership, and likewise, that isn't just from the top. It's what's alongside you every single day as you keep powering. So I think that's the first thing. The other thing is being really clear about that purpose, and of course, for all of us now, that purpose has to be solving the problems, and within that, making sure that you're doing that in a way that's right commercially as well as right from a climate point of view as well. I think there's probably an even better question would be, how many things can you get wrong that other people can avoid doing? But I think you're not pushing it unless you bump into problems. And I think that's there's a wonderful sort of thing out there called the Stockdale paradox. That when we built the last business, goodness me, I repeated it and remembered it most days, and here we are building the next one with the same thing. And that is, never ever avoid or ignore the brutal facts of the situation that you're in, but then likewise never give up the faith and the focus on where you're headed. And I think by marrying those two things, you'll tend to find a solution. You'll tend to inspire the team to find a solution. And before you know it, problems actually just become something that you overcome each day in order to make things a little bit better. So hopefully I've imparted a couple of bits of advice.
Yeah, wonderful words. Yeah, very good. So what's next for Konvoy?
So we're very fortunate to have just closed another funding round. We've also just won this award with you guys, and it's great to be recognised for connected packaging and how this can be applied, because there are so many condition-based products all the way through the world, where just the slightest elongated supply chain route or the slightest exposure to unfavorable temperatures, etc., can affect ultimately the how the product's received by the consumer. So there's an exploring across other categories, which is where some of the feedback came from some of the judges as well, which was great to read. It's one thing thinking, wow, we could do this in other areas, but it's another thing when experts like that have recognized the same thing. Of course, they focused on beer. That's our passion. Kegs are our passion, and draft beer is our passion. And then we'll sort of continue to roll out this technology globally. And so the team based out of the UK are focused on Europe and the US, as well as having this technology on our own kegs in firstly UK and Ireland, in order to create a pool of kegs that turn faster, don't get lost, and therefore we're bringing down the carbon footprint of the packaging that draft beer sits within. And having just read this morning, there's great brands out there that are releasing zero carbon, actually carbon negative beers, which we can contribute on their path to by leveraging, what gets seen can ultimately be optimized. So the focus continues to grow, UK, Europe, both technology as well as operating our own keg fleets.
So, Christian Barden, CEO of Konvoy, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much indeed.